Hello everyone, this is Natalie again. Today let's talk about lesson planning for CCD a little bit. I'm going to show you an older lesson plan I have from a couple years ago, but it's about the same idea I use every week. I put together an outline more so than a true lesson plan like a grade school teacher may do that, because like I was telling you before, I've got 45 minutes primarily, sometimes as much as an hour, so I don't have a lot to put together. This is just an outline. It doesn't even matter what I have on here. I'm not going to so much go over what I wrote, but this is about as much as I do for one class period, a regular loose leaf sheet of paper. I have the date up on the very top. Oftentimes I write myself notes such as copy the Hail Mary or something. I may have a handout or something. That way when I get into my classroom, I'll remember, oh yes, I got to make those copies today. Let's see. In here, I'm talking about what I'm going to review from the last week. I always review briefly at the very start of class. Just review the last week or two worth of material. Oftentimes I just ask a question or two and see if any of the students remember what we talked about. And then here, that's just kind of the main part of the lesson. In this case, a couple years ago, I read a story every single week. I oftentimes still do, but that was a very main part of my lesson, was story time. Here I have a note, the deacon came in. That's probably something it's a different color of ink, so it's probably something I wrote after class so I could remember that he was there, and it looks like he talked about St. Francis. That way I can remember as I look back at my lesson plans from prior years how long things took, and then I can see that he had been there for 10-15 minutes, so that's why I covered less material than I might have otherwise. This particular year I was doing two projects at the end of class. One was called folder work, and one was something that we were going to take home, so that's listed at the bottom. And again, the idea isn't so much that I'm talking about precisely what I have written on here, but just that you can see it's a pretty rough outline, because you never know how much you're going to get through in a certain class period. Oftentimes the main lesson takes longer than you think because you have the students start asking questions and things like that. Sometimes the lesson takes a lot less than you think, so I always have more than enough planned, and I often have a couple small worksheets or coloring sheets of some sort on my teacher's desk, so that if we do have a few minutes at the end of class, no time will be wasted. Now, I'm going to show you what we've gotten from my DRE and really from the diocese, and you may have gotten something like this from your DRE too. This comes, in fact, my DRE gave it to me, but I could have gotten it off the diocesan website. You can see it's what looks like a kind of a short outline here. This is what we should cover in second grade. But this paper is pretty thick. I don't know how many pages are in this. The first time I looked at it, I thought to myself, Father, there is no way I can cover this in 1 year. In fact, I still think that. However, I understand that this is the order of things that the bishop and our priest want us to cover, and they're the topics that should be covered in second grade. Our priest has gone over this in general with the teachers, because he wants each grade to teach what they're supposed to, so that the following grade builds on first grade, builds on second grade. If the teachers are all on their own program and teaching all random things, the students, they'll learn a lot, of course, because each teacher has so much to offer. But the idea is, if it's in some sort of order, they're going to catch on that much better. The main thing is to plan ahead for your class. You don't want to get into a class of second graders and not know what you're going to be doing. That never ends well. Also, make sure you have extra stuff. If you have 45 minutes or an hour, make sure you have plans that you might think takes an hour and 15 minutes. You'll probably not cover it, but at least you'll have enough. And like I said, on my teacher's desk, I always have some coloring sheets or other sort of miscellaneous projects that could kind of cover many topics. sitting there so that I'm always ready if there's a few minutes left at the end of class. Now, as we're talking about lesson planning, I wanted to explain what I did this past week. I was supposed to be starting on Moses. We talked about my salvation history timeline and waiting for a Savior. We covered several of the other Old Testament people. Abraham, well, Noah was the first one. Noah, Abraham, King David. We got into Jonah and Daniel as the prophets. And then we left a large area in the middle that was Moses. So we were going to start on Moses. And as you know, I have all these books, and we were going to start on baby Moses. When I got in to the school, my DRE said, oh, the deacon's going to come in, and he's got to do safe environment training with all of the students. And of course, what do? We roll our eyes. Oh, no, I don't want you to take away my class time. But I understand deacons got to do that. So he came in, and I think they said it would be 15 minutes or so, and I knew that was not true because I knew it would be a half an hour for sure. Once deacon comes in and he gets his laptop set up with the video playing, and the children they take a little while to quiet down, and they ask questions and things like that. It was for sure a half an hour. So I had about 20 minutes of class once he was done. And therefore I knew that I could not cover anywhere near what I had planned. So what I did is we all came off of our desk and we sat down in the front of the room where I have an area to sit down for story time. And we went over the story of baby Moses. And that's all we got to. We read through this. It's kind of confusing for the students that, they don't know much about Moses yet. The main thing is that the Hebrew people were slaves at this time in Egypt, and Pharaoh wanted to kill the newborn sons of the Hebrews so that the slaves would not become strong and overthrow him. And then at the end, of course, we know that baby Moses ended up in the palace and raised by the princess and raised as a prince and a son of Pharaoh. So we read that book. That took, several minutes, 10 or 12 minutes. And then with the rest of the time in class, rather than starting in on now Moses is grown up, and the first thing we know about Moses is that he kills a man and has to flee. Rather than getting into a whole new topic for those last few minutes of class, I have another notebooking sheet. I've got a lot of these from Catholic Icing with baby Moses. So they could draw a little picture of him in the basket and again write a few words. The idea is that you have to always be ready for anything. When you're teaching CCD, probably true when you're teaching anything. And when the deacon or DRE tells you that your class is going to be shortened, you have to roll with it and get done what you can and then pick up where you left off the next week. That's all for now. In our next video, we'll continue on with Moses. Bye for now.